Ah, tomatoes. Is there any greater pleasure than sinking your teeth into a juicy, homegrown tomato still warm from the sun? That burst of flavor, the vibrant color. It's what gardening is all about, isn't it? But I know from years of answering your letters and emails that getting those perfect tomatoes isn't always easy. Did you know that the secret to growing the juiciest, most mouth-watering tomatoes starts way before the first fruit even appears? Yep, if you've ever ended up with tiny, bland tomatoes or a plant that just won't thrive, this is for you. In the next few minutes, we're breaking down the absolute best expert tips to grow tomatoes that are bursting with flavor. And stick around because at the end, we'll reveal the one mistake most gardeners make that ruins their entire harvest. Now, if you want big, juicy tomatoes, you need to set them up for success from day one. That means choosing the right variety. A lot of people just grab whatever tomato plant they see first at the garden center, but not all tomatoes are the same. Some love hot, sunny weather, while others do better in cooler temperatures. Picking the right type for your climate can make or break your harvest. Think of it like this. A tomato plant that's happy in the Mediterranean heat won't necessarily thrive in a cooler, wetter climate. It's all about matching the variety to your garden conditions. Do your research. Look for varieties that are known to do well in your area, or ask at your local nursery for recommendations. They'll be able to point you in the right direction based on your soil type and the amount of sunlight your garden gets. Don't be afraid to experiment a bit either. Try growing a few different types of tomatoes to see what works best for you. You might be surprised at what you discover. Some years I favor a classic gardener's delight for their sweetness. Other years it's all about the sun gold for their vibrant color and early harvest. And remember, it's not just about the size of the tomato, but the flavor too. Some varieties are bred for their sweetness, while others have a more tangy, acidic flavor. Think about how you'll be using your tomatoes, salads, sauces, sandwiches, and choose a variety that will suit your needs. Tomatoes are hungry plants. They need a good foundation to flourish. And that foundation is your soil. Think of it like this. You wouldn't expect to grow prize-winning roses in a patch of dry, compacted clay, would you? Tomatoes are the same. They love loose, well-draining soil that's packed with organic matter. Before you even think about planting, you need to give your soil a good feed. Dig in plenty of compost, aged manure, or worm castings. These are like superfoods for your soil, providing all the essential nutrients your tomatoes need to grow big and strong. And don't forget about calcium. Tomatoes are prone to blossom end rot, which is caused by a calcium deficiency. You can prevent this by adding crushed eggshells or bone meal to your soil. It's a simple step that can make a world of difference. Once you've added your amendments, give the soil a good fork over to mix everything in. You want to create a lovely, crumbly texture that will allow the roots to spread out easily. If your soil is heavy clay, you might need to add some grit to improve drainage. This could be horticultural sand, perlite, or even fine gravel. Just make sure it's well mixed in so the water can drain away freely. Now, this is where a lot of gardeners go wrong. They treat tomato plants like any other seedling, popping them straight into the ground at the same depth they were in the pot. But tomatoes have a secret weapon. They can grow roots all along their stems. That's right, those little hairs you see on the stem aren't just for show. They're potential roots just waiting for the chance to reach down into the soil. And by planting your tomatoes deep, I'm talking burying at least 2/3 of the stem, you're encouraging a much stronger root system. A strong root system means a stronger plant, and a stronger plant means more tomatoes. It's as simple as that. So don't be afraid to bury those stems deep. Your tomatoes will thank you for it. Spacing is also crucial. Tomatoes need good airflow to prevent diseases, so give them plenty of room to breathe. I like to space mine about 2 feet apart, in rows that are 3 feet apart. This might seem like a lot, but trust me, they'll fill out quickly. And finally, don't forget to support your plants. Tomatoes are natural climbers, and they'll quickly become a tangled mess if you don't give them something to climb on. You can use stakes, cages, or even string trellises. Just make sure they're sturdy enough to support the weight of a mature plant laden with fruit. Now let's talk about watering. Tomatoes are thirsty plants, especially when they're young and getting established. But that doesn't mean you should be drenching them every day. In fact, overwatering can be just as harmful as underwatering. The key is to water deeply and consistently. Instead of giving your plants a quick sprinkle every day, aim for a good soaking 2 to 3 times a week. And when you water at the base of the plant, not from overhead. This will help to prevent fungal diseases and encourage the roots to grow deep down into the soil. Mulching is another great way to conserve moisture and keep the roots cool. I like to use a thick layer of well-rotted compost or bark chippings around my tomato plants. This helps to suppress weeds too, which is always a bonus. Now let's talk about feeding. Tomatoes are heavy feeders, which means they need plenty of nutrients to produce those juicy fruits. I like to give mine a boost with a slow-release organic fertilizer at planting time. This will provide them with a steady supply of nutrients throughout the growing season. Once the flowers start to appear, it's time to switch to a fertilizer that's higher in phosphorus and potassium. These nutrients are essential for flower and fruit development. You can either use a granular fertilizer or a liquid feed. I like to alternate between the two. And finally, don't forget about the power of compost tea or fish emulsion. These natural fertilizers are packed with beneficial microorganisms that can help to improve soil health and boost plant growth. I like to give my tomatoes a weekly dose of compost tea or fish emulsion throughout the growing season. Now this is where things get a little bit more hands-on. Pruning might seem a bit daunting at first, but trust me, it's essential for healthy, productive tomato plants. Think of it like this. When you prune a tomato plant, you're basically redirecting its energy. By removing excess foliage, you're forcing the plant to put all its energy into producing fruit. The first thing you need to do is remove any lower leaves that are touching the ground. These leaves are more susceptible to diseases and they can also harbor pests, so it's best to get rid of them. Next, you need to deal with the suckers. Suckers are the small shoots that grow from the joint where a leaf branch meets the main stem. They might look cute, but they're actually energy vampires, stealing nutrients from the developing fruits, so pinch them out as soon as you see them. You'll also need to thin out the foliage a bit to improve airflow. Aim to remove any leaves that are crossing over each other or blocking sunlight from reaching the fruits. This will help to prevent diseases and ensure that your tomatoes ripen evenly. I like to prune my tomato plants once a week, but you can do it more or less often depending on how vigorous your plants are growing. Just remember to use clean, sharp tools to avoid spreading diseases. Now, no matter how hard we try, there are always going to be pests out there who want to share in our tomato bounty. But don't reach for the chemical pesticides just yet. There are plenty of natural ways to keep those pesky critters at bay. One of the simplest and most effective methods is a good old-fashioned blast of water. Aphids in particular are easily dislodged with a strong jet of water. Just be sure to target the undersides of the leaves, where they like to congregate. Neem oil is another great natural insecticide. It's derived from the seeds of the neem tree, and it works wonders against a wide range of pests, including aphids, whiteflies, and spider mites. You can buy neem oil at most garden centers, or you can make your own spray by mixing a few tablespoons of neem oil with a gallon of water. For larger pests like tomato hornworms, hand-picking is often the best solution. These caterpillars are masters of disguise, but once you spot one, you'll never forget it. They're big, green, and they have a voracious appetite for tomato leaves. The best way to get rid of them is to simply pick them off by hand and drop them into a bucket of soapy water. And finally, don't underestimate the power of companion planting. Certain plants like basil, marigolds, and nasturtiums naturally repel pests. So planting them alongside your tomatoes can help to keep the bad guys away. And that's it. Follow these tips, and you'll have a huge, juicy harvest all season long. It's all about working with nature, understanding the needs of these incredible plants, and giving them the best possible start in life. Hit that like button, subscribe for more gardening hacks, and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite tomato variety to grow?